Aaron Nabus here, and thanks for tuning in to the Holly Chill podcast. For episode 67, we continue with our focus on independent filmmakers. At WonderCon 2019 in Anaheim, California, I got a chance to have a pretty cool conversation with the creative development team behind Carmina, which is currently in production, and it's the first movie from the anthology series, The Tales from Midnight. I got a chance to talk to Mark AJ Nazal. He's the director, visual effects supervisor, and executive producer. Erica Juliet, the lead actress and producer, and Jomari Joe Arciaga, producer. Mark is a Primetime Emmy award-winning visual effects artist and supervisor and filmmaker, best known for his work on Fox's hit show Gotham. Erica is an international actress, writer, and model working between Bali, LA, and Manila. She has been featured in TV shows such as Gang Related, Bones, NCIS LA, 90210, and more. Joe is a co-founder and executive director emeritus of the Filipino American Chamber of Commerce in Greater LA. He has also served on several nonprofit boards, including Phil-Am Arts, the Association for the Advancement of Philippine Arts and Culture. Carmina is a fantasy drama that tells the story of a young woman played by Erica Juliet, who discovers that she's always had the power to fight back against her demons. The character's demons are under the guise of issues faced by an undocumented immigrant suffering from domestic abuse. The narrative and visual framework of Carmina comes from a mixed Filipino-American background with a character that lives in a small and conservative town in Middle America, contrasted by the character's cultural heritage, which happens to involve a Diwata from Philippine mythology. This mythological character will be played by a Filipino actress, Geneva Cruz. Please enjoy my conversation with the creative development team behind Carmina, Mark, Erica, and Joe. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Holly Chill podcast. We are at WonderCon 2019, and I'm joined by the creative team behind Carmina. I first met one of the creators, Mark Nazal, at Phil-Am Creative, one of their networking events late last year, and I got to hold the Emmy that he won. That was a pretty cool experience. We're also joined by Erica Juliet. She's one of the lead actresses, or she's the lead actress, and we're also joined by Joe Arciaga. Did I pronounce it right? Okay. He's a producer. So thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
I guess we'll just get right to it. Maybe just get into a brief synopsis of Carmina and how you brought everybody together.
Okay, so I'm going to begin on this one. Carmina is the story about a young woman who discovers that she's always had the power to fight back against her demons. And while that's very metaphorical in a lot of senses, it's also very supernatural. It's literal to a certain degree. The power that she possesses happens to be because she's part of something supernatural. She's half of something supernatural.
Mm-hmm. You're gonna leave it at that, huh?
Yeah, you know what? Okay, so, all right, how it all happened? I think how it all happened was, I ended up joining Film Creative. Like, you're right. Like, after the Emmys, it's great working on a lot of major shows, but I was looking for something a little bit more personal, something that was a little bit more meaningful to the culture, because, while it's great working on all the big projects, it still isn't really a story that you can completely back up against. It's not your story. It's not our story. So the goal for doing Carmina, and in essence, not just Carmina, but something we call The Tales from Midnight, which is a proposed anthology that tells different stories. Carmina just happens to be the first, is to tell supernatural stories from our culture, from Filipino culture, and be able to showcase that to practically anybody that likes the genre. I mean, the idea is that there's so much myth that's quite unknown to the rest of the world that comes from Filipino mythology. I think it would be cool to be able to showcase that to the rest of the world and have people enjoy it as well.
Mm. And how did you bring this group together?
Speak. You guys speak.
Well, we took a writing course together. It was a master's screenwriting course that we took through Film Creative. and I guess that's how we met.
And Film
Working
Creative,
together.
Film Creative is located in Los Angeles.
Yes.
Yes.
Right.
But to actually elaborate a little bit more on that, I guess after the meet and greet that we did, a lot of people wanted to do a project that had some visual effects, but they just didn't know really what to do. So I got approached by Erica, Meriden, who you've also met, and Caitlin, and they pitched me a project, which, you know, it was a generally okay idea. They pitched me a witchcraft-based project, but the problem with that for me was that it was kind of like, it was too derivative, but it also wasn't culturally personal. Like, they wanted to do like just a random witchcraft-based story, but, you know, coming from who they were as people and who they were as characters, who they were as actors to begin with, it didn't make sense that they would be playing, you know, some random witch character from Salem because there's 3 Asian girls. You know? It's like, that's great. You had ancestors who were in Salem in the 1500s. How did they get there?
We were thinking more like past life, Mark. It was like reincarnated into Filipino witches.
But then I argued, it's like, okay, well, you 3 are already culturally unique, so why don't we make a project that capitalizes on the uniqueness of our culture instead of rehashing a story that's been told over and over again? Why don't we give audiences something new to rally up against? And, you know, it's like, I think with everything being a reboot nowadays, it would be good to find some new stories, and I feel like we have a lot of stories to tell, just not the rest of the world know about it.
I like that. That's a good point. Joe,
I think I like the fact that Mark involved or is involving the shall we say older,
more distinguished,
traditional members of the community. We have an actress, performer. Her name is Geneva Cruz, who'll be joining us as one of the pivotal characters. But Mark thought it would be an homage, sort of like a tip of the hat to connect the new with the old.
Yeah, because
that's amazing.
Yeah,
thanks, Mark.
No, you're welcome, Joe. And thank you for being a part of it, because I think for me, just so you know, Aaron, I'm not sure if I mentioned this, but I didn't grow up here. I'm not completely Filipino American. I didn't grow up 100% here in the United States. I moved here when I was 18, but not from the Philippines, actually. I moved here from Australia, and before Australia, I was in the Middle East. So I moved around quite a lot. And but what really stuck to me was wherever I moved, my mom would always make us watch movies from Filipino cinema, and that kind of like crafted a lot of the, not crafted, but that influenced a lot of the stories I knew growing up, no matter where I was. But also there was a desire to make it more internationally palatable, because I think the problem with a lot of like productions from over there is that they're only relevant to the culture. And so I wanted to bring it a little bit outside of that and really have it for everybody to be able to understand and connect with.
Oh, cool. Now, how did you go about, finding the story that you wanted to sort of create into a movie?
Well, see, here's the thing. Well, 2 things. Let's start with when you grow up like Filipino, which I'm sure you are. Did your parents ever tell you stories about scary stories to tell you as a kid?
No.
No. Okay, so I guess our upbringings are a little different. With more traditional Filipino families, I suppose, they tend to scare their kids a lot to have to drive them into submission. And my mom was no different. She would tell a story so that would pay attention to whatever we were doing, and those stuck to me. And a lot of those were different things. But also, when we were in Abu Dhabi, actually, and this was in the Middle East, mind you, we had a foreign language class, and for us it was Filipino or Tagalog, and we had books from the Philippines. So I was able to grow up, even though I wasn't in the country itself, I was able to grow up knowing about the mythology, and I thought it was pretty interesting. Now, when it comes to Carmina herself, Carmina has some personal aspects, because you can't have a mythological character without a hook into reality. So when they first approached me about it, I completely nixed their idea. Instead, I asked them about their personal stories. I believe any good supernatural or sci-fi project needs to have a real world grounding. And so what I did was I asked them, tell me about yourself. And Erica told me that, she's biracial. She's half
half Filipino, and meaning my mom's French, Irish, English, Swedish, but my father's...
That's a lot of halves right there.
Yeah,
Well,
so she's half...
My father's Filipino, with, my grandparents were from the Philippines.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so, she's biracial, but also she had some personal struggles growing up. And so we wrote some of those struggles into Carmina, and we played around with the fact that, well, okay, that's a part of your story, but maybe instead of you being half racially, maybe you're half racially and supernaturally. Maybe this other part of your culture has more of a supernatural origin that you just never knew. Mm-hmm. So that's where it began, and it just kind of expanded from there.
Now, Erica, obviously you had a lot of input into this character.
Yes.
What was it like seeing what you would sort of envision and then what the end product ended up being?
Well, I guess it's just been a really cool experience so far. In a big thing for me with trying to create a new character with supernatural abilities was trying to make it original. I felt like everything had been done before, and I've always been fascinated by all kinds of mythology, but I never got to learn the Filipino mythology growing up either. And when Mark challenged us to use our own heritage into what kind of characters these can potentially be and what kind of powers they can have that are different, I started to research it. And it's really exciting too, because he really knows how to show these things with visual effects, these characters that can have powers, a Filipino version of a vampire, that I never even knew there was a difference, but it's actually really, really cool. And when, somebody like Mark taking a character like that and creating it visually and being able to share it on an international level is just the coolest thing ever. Because a lot of, like we were saying, in the Philippines, the stories there are that they create on GMA and stuff, it's all local for the local audience and the local target. And, it's nice that we can share it internationally now with something like this.
Yeah, I remember seeing the, I guess that sort of test footage you showed at the meetup at Film Creative. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I think really that's the idea. The idea is that, yes, these are Filipino stories, but they're not just for a Filipino audience. They're for anybody that likes sci-fi, fantasy, or even some aspects of horror that that they'd enjoy. Like, the whole idea is it's not a Filipino specific story. It's a story, period.
Right.
It just happens to have characters who are Filipino, and that's really how you'd want to bring our characters together, by not sort of like being too limiting in terms of your audience, but to just tell a good story and have a little bit more fun with it.
Joe, how's your experience so far been with this movie?
It's been great, and actually, I told Mark, hey, he tapped me for to be an associate producer at the beginning, and with no industry experience. Actually, I'm as stereotypical as can be. Former military, registered nurse, the whole thing. So, it's been a blast. And I'm trying to get my hands on all the materials on film production, and all that stuff, and trying to brush up. Matter of fact, Mark and I will be attending a 2-day film class coming up. But even with just the screenwriting class, and just realizing what could be possible, what's potentially out there that we can present, because it's not it does, like Mark said, it doesn't end with Carmina. We're actually trying to get an anthology going, a series of stories featuring different Philippine mythological characters. That'll be amazing to bring and to see brown faces upon that screen.
Yeah.
So it's been a blast.
Awesome. Looking forward to that.
Yes.
Besides Carmina, what is there anything else you want to sort of add to it before we move on?
You know what? We could probably talk about one in particular. So for Carmina, the character that we're showcasing is called a Diwata. A Diwata is, think of it as depending on the type of information you read about them, they're either wood fairies, nymphs, demigods, or dark fairies. So it really does depend. Here we're kind of playing a little bit on everything. It's because it is a short, it's really just going to be a taste of what the character could be. But again, it's to show that side of it. The other one is called a manananggal.
That's a vampire, right?
Yes and no.
No.
I mean,
sort of.
so the reason that it's interesting is because it's technically it's a vampiric creature, but it's a woman whose lower half of her body actually stays when she becomes the creature, so she separates into her other half. And in fact, that's kind of a play on words because that project is called The Other Half of Her. But yeah, so those are the kind of characters. What I mean is, like, you know, they're not a lot of them have been pretty much done, and there's a lot of room to play around with how they look on screen because, well, they've been done locally, but those are their interpretations. We're bound to have ours.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up because, I mean, like Erica, I know nothing about really Filipino mythology. My parents are Igorot, so they grew up in the mountain province. So I'm wondering if they have their own.
The answer is yes.
Yeah,
the answer is yes, because in fact, when I was in school, I went to film and animation school. I actually did, I don't even know what I sourced it from. I just Googled stuff. I found an Igorot story, I think, about a woman that came from the stars, and she fell into Earth, and it was kind of like Stardust in a way, but their own more folk traditional version. I'm sure I'm sort of saying all this all the wrong way, but there are most definitely stories from their standpoints, and you'll be surprised at how many there are.
I sort of want to switch gears a little bit and maybe get to know each of you a little bit better. I mean, it seems like a unifying factor here is film creative. I mean, obviously,
Definitely.
Each of you have a creative spark. I want to maybe delve into that a little bit more, and you know, maybe you can tell a little bit about your background. I know Mark, you know, grew up in the Middle East and in Australia, but maybe go a little into your background and why you feel it's important to be a creative. I guess we'll start with Erica.
Okay. I started in entertainment pretty much when I was 18. It was a big deal. Instead of going to college to be a doctor, I was already working full-time as a professional makeup artist for MAC Cosmetics, and I opened this store in Malibu, and I was really comfortable in my career and really confident that I wanted to pursue my artistic passions. So that's when I started doing commercials and modeling and acting, and I got to work overseas a lot in Indonesia. I was based out of Bali back and forth for the last 8 years. And then based out of there, I flew to the Philippines very often, like every single month, pretty much. Well, every month for a year, I was in the Philippines, meeting with all the different producers in town. I just wanted to meet these people, and I pitched them a script of mine, and basically I spent a lot of time there, and I came back here and had my daughter, and I've just been focusing on writing and making projects that are more meaningful. You know, I've spent so much of my time, you know, there's so much politics and entertainment, and I've spent so much time, you know, if you have 3 auditions a day, and I'm studying for all these different roles, and, you know, some of these roles, it's like the projects never shoot, or it's kind of like, is this a character I even want to play? So now I'm just focusing on telling more meaningful stories, and the Philippine culture is really special to me because I grew up with my Filipino grandmother raising me, and going there was always a dream. And then after going there, I see how important it is to have representation in entertainment and Hollywood.
Yeah, representation does matter. Mark, is there anything you want to add to your story so far?
All right, so for me, it was always about the fantastical. That was what always resonated with me. How I got into it was, it's kind of a cliched story because I first got a digital camera in high school instead of a traditional 8mm, because obviously we're a little bit more forward in time. I discovered software in my room. I started like replicating visual effects in my favorite shows in my room.
It was Charmed, right?
Yes, it was Charmed. It was really funny that you're saying that, because now Charmed is Hispanic.
Yeah.
Yeah, Charmed is now very Hispanic. Yeah, it was, Charmed, Buffy, the first X-Men films, which is really odd because we ended up working on The Gifted. You know what I mean? So for me, it's all going full circle, because a lot of the things that I've been a fan of, I ended up working on.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes me really happy. But now I'm finding that I want to explore something more, like apart from my original goals. But yeah, no, it really just began with a kid with a camera and a computer. That's really where it began. But as opposed to wanting to act or wanting to be in front of the camera, I wanted to bring the fantastical to life. And that's really where my background is from.
Awesome. Joe?
Well, I wasn't really planning on doing anything creative apart from, the usual karaoke stuff. If you can even call that creative.
Sure.
But I grew up, I was one of my early passions was drawing comics. I had my own little strip. Of course, nobody ever saw that. But when I saw the screenwriting class, I always harbored sort of like a writing career, having a writing career. And I've had some articles published, with the local Filipino-American newspapers around here, around LA. But they all started from Film Creative, and meeting these wonderful folks. So
How long have you been part of Film Creative?
Oh gosh, 2 years maybe tops.
Ditto.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's like you're the same class.
Pretty much. Yeah, it's like the graduating class.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
fu-
that's literally what we were.
That's funny because I had 2 interviews prior to interviewing you, and the group that I interviewed, the comic book creators, they were part of sort of this. I don't know if you know Meltdown Comics in LA.
Yes, I do know.
Yeah, they were part of
Comics
a group that learned how to create comics, and they were part of that Meltdown Comics creating group.
Mhm.
So they all stick together. They all support each other. So I'm assuming that's the way Film Creative is.
Well, it's an interesting way to bring people from a similar background together, but
Yes.
it's like that's only the beginning, really, because despite your background, you still have to get along. You really have to find the right amount of chemistry of, the right amount of talent, the right amount of just agreeable aspect of your personalities wanting to collaborate on anything, the right amount of passion. So there are a lot of mixes. It's just a good way of meeting people to start and then seeing where it goes from there. So for that, I'm pretty thankful.
Cool. I guess we'll just take a little break and we'll sort of do a thunder round, because one thing that we like to do on the Hall H show is ask random questions.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay.
Being Filipino, we love our food, right?
Only the sweets.
Only the sweets. Okay. No ampalaya for you.
No, definitely not. No.
Hey, I love that stuff.
Ampalaya it's a bitter melon.
Apparently, it's good for diabetes, or so my dad
I,
said.
I don't like it either. When I eat panaglit, I usually take it out.
It's an acquired taste.
Yeah, for sure. My first question in the round is, if you were going to have dinner with somebody, it could be dead or alive, who would it be, and where would you take that person to eat? I guess we'll start with Joe.
Yeah.
Jeez. I don't know. Lapu Lapu? You know who that is?
Yeah, he killed Magellan.
Supposedly he killed Magellan.
Yeah.
But actually, around that time, he was already in his 50s or 60s. So
Oh,
it couldn't
for real?
have been him.
Interesting.
So when I, have him for dinner and say, "Did you really kill Magellan?" I don't think so.
Where would you take him to eat?
Oh, I don't know. Not a turo turo, that's for sure. Maybe for some burgers and fries.
There you go. Mark.
I wanted a more clever answer, but it wouldn't be truthful. I think for me, it's definitely a person who's still alive. I don't admire people a whole lot, but there's one person that's always come up time and time again, and that's Guillermo del Toro. And I feel very connected to his work because it's very similar to the goals that I have. If anything, it's like you choose somebody who you want to be when you grow up. That's such a cliche, but it would definitely be him. It's not about picking his brain in terms of his process or whatnot. It's more of just to say thanks for the inspiration, really.
Mm-hmm. And where would you take him to eat?
Oh, God. An ice cream spot. Definitely an ice cream spot. Like probably Salt and Straw.
Do you have a favorite flavor?
You know what? The goat cheese.
Oh,
for
really?
sure. Yeah, the goat cheese is good. It's really good. It's like it's a strange choice, but it's pretty good. Like once you actually try it, because I think a lot of people are just like, that sounds gross, but it's super good.
How about you, Erica?
I feel like I'd have to answer like Mark with just someone that's inspired me.
Mm-hmm.
Angelina Jolie.
Okay.
I don't know. I mean, I could have a lot of more clever answers too, and I mean, I could even say I'd like to have lunch with my husband, because now with baby, I don't get to ever see him. But yeah, she's always been a big inspiration to me. Just, yeah, I'd love to, I guess, do the same thing. Just thank her. And I mean, gosh, I don't know. I wouldn't even know what to say. I might be a little starstruck.
And where would you take her to eat?
Well, I was thinking about that. I mean, does she eat out anywhere? Like, you know, it might have to be, you know,
Must be vegan.
on set, working somewhere.
Services.
Maybe a
Overseas, on location.
like a smoothie place, maybe.
A smoothie.
You can have peanut butter and celery.
I saw her eat a sandwich once in a movie. We could eat sandwiches together.
I saw her eat a sandwich.
That was just once.
Yeah, in the movie Wanted, I think is what she was
Oh,
eating.
wow.
I was like, oh, okay,
Wow,
she eats those.
that's attention to detail.
I'll start
right
eating
there.
them too.
That's attention to detail.
Man, I could go for a sandwich right now. I didn't eat breakfast.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because we drove up from San Diego, and then once we got here, we're like, it's like a long line to try to get parking, and it's like, you know, finally made it to the hotel, then came over here. It's like, then all of a sudden, people wanted to get on the podcast. So.
No, I'm not gonna lie. We were late because we had to eat a little bit.
If I were to give you $1 million, what would you do with it? And we'll start with Erica.
Well, honestly, I mean, I guess I would use most of it to invest in Carmina. And then maybe buy some land in Bali and a house in Beverly Hills. And yeah, save a lot of it and give a lot away.
Mm.
$1 million is not a lot.
I was just gonna say that.
Well, anyway,
I was gonna say if I got $1 million, then yes, we would finish a feature treatment of it.
Uh-huh.
So yes, we would finish a full treatment of Carmina, not just the short, but we do the full feature and probably like make that be the full-time job instead of making it the part-time job.
World peace. No.
It's like, wow.
Beverly Hills.
That's not gonna go very. That's gonna go very
you
far.
can buy it for maybe 5 minutes.
Right. Yeah.
Or maybe a shed in Beverly Hills.
Yeah, I guess house.
A shed? Not
No,
even
probably,
just
I'd
a
probably
shed.
go
The
to
garage, the driveway.
USC Film School. That's probably half of that. Yeah.
Very
but,
true.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, maybe film school. I mean,
Film school.
it's been something that kind of wanted to do
Mhm.
when I was a kid, but yeah,
Cool.
it'll be great.
That's awesome. You mentioned the karaoke earlier. If you were to sing the last song, you're closing the karaoke joint down.
Mhm.
I mean, what are you gonna sing?
Oh man, of course. I think you know what I'm gonna say, right?
Journey?
Which?
My way.
Oh, my
Oh,
way.
really?
Oh. I still think my dad would sing.
That's Filipino.
And my dad would
as
sing that one.
heck.
Yeah.
Usher, right?
Oh my God. Wait,
It's
is
an Usher song, right? Not Usher?
Oh no.
Oh, I was like, I like it.
Wait, who
All
did
blue
Wait,
eyes.
who did
Frank
sing?
Sinatra.
Oh.
I don't know, who is it?
You gotta take her to karaoke.
Oh, it's Frank Sinatra.
Yeah, Frank Sinatra.
I had a bit of a revival for Journey, not because of Journey, but because of Glee.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, it would be a Journey song for sure.
Don't stop
Any-
believing.
Yes, it would be "Don't Stop Believing"
Oh, cool.
or
Eric?
"Open Arms." I'm not sure.
You can't go wrong either way.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
true. Very true.
Erica.
Oh my gosh. I mean, honestly, I don't know if singing's my best talent. My second day in the Philippines, they had me sing on GMA for Wulang Sulagang.
Is this on
They
YouTube?
were like, it was Kuya Germs. He was like, just prepare a song, come on set. And I had a film school teacher who told me never hesitate, if someone asks you to sing, So I said, sure, I love singing. And then he's like, great, come tonight, sing a song on our show.
Oh, yeah.
There was no rehearsal or anything. It was I mean, I don't think I was that bad, but because I was in film school, I was like, oh, where's the editors at? So I went to the editing room and I was like, do you guys need me to do ADR for this? I think they cut my part out of the show, which is fine. I have it on YouTube in my private account.
Okay. Wait, I want to see it. I want to see it.
I know. If I ever feel like embarrassing myself, I'll share it to you guys.
That
Pretty.
guy's a legend,
I
by
forgot
the way.
the lines halfway through. I was like, "Thank you to GMA.
Yeah.
Thank you, Miss Lou." And then it was embarrassing. And my family's like patting me on the back after, like, it's okay. You weren't that bad. You just need to practice.
That's what they always say.
And of course, especially my auntie, who was the expert, Filipino karaoke master, singing the Fugees every morning. I'd be waking up and I'd be hearing it, like, in the provinces, like, very loudly through my window.
Can I take back that answer for the $1 million? It'll be singing lessons for Eric.
Right? Oh my gosh. For real. Yeah.
I guess my last question, since we are here at the WonderCon, the land of superheroes and supervillains, what superpower do you wish you had, Joe?
Wow.
It could be something mundane. Like for me, I'd say I wish I didn't have to sleep.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've always been fascinated by Superman, so maybe super strength. It's, very basic, but wow, if you had that.
You get a lot of utility out of that.
Hmm?
You'd get a lot of utility out of that.
Yeah. Great for doing the yard, maybe.
Mark?
I'm pretty awful. I want telekinesis because I'm pretty violent. I would not be Jean Grey. I'd be Carrie.
Oh my gosh. Oh my god.
Oh my god.
I'd totally be like, all right, some fucker like flips me on the freeway. I'd be like,
I guess when you say quiet on the set, they'll take you
oh yeah,
seriously.
exactly. It's like, yeah, no. Anyway, whenever people ask me, it's like Carrie or Jean Grey. Carrie. I would so not be Jean Grey. She's way too nice.
Unless the Dark Phoenix.
Well, yeah, true, but technically not Jean Grey. But yeah.
Erica?
I'd like similar powers with Mark too. I mean, in my violent side, where I just feel like this person can just go and
Maybe you want a vanishing power.
Maybe a vanishing power. I'd love that. And it's really weird. I don't know. I think it's a common thing. I've always had dreams of flying, and I mean, just something simple like that. I feel like it's actually real. I've had so many dreams about it where I feel like it's a real thing that I've actually done before. So maybe I'd like that power back from my dreams. Like I could, just.
Well, you
go
are
anywhere.
Yeah,
I know.
yeah.
Maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's what it is.
It's funny you mention that because I was going to go to that next because we were talking before the podcast and you were telling us about Darna. So maybe you can sort of reiterate what you told.
Okay. Actually, I think Joe's probably better suited.
Okay.
For this. Come on, go ahead. You're better suited for this.
No, Darna.
Well, I guess just to frame it, Eric is wearing Darna cosplay right now.
Darna is the most iconic Filipino superhero.
Yes.
She was created by a guy who's kind of considered to be the Stan Lee of the Philippines, and she's been around since the 60s. In her essence, she's very much the Filipino equivalent of Captain Marvel, although she kind of looks more like Wonder Woman.
Right.
But yeah. So, anything you want to add to it?
Oh no, I mean she's been portrayed in several movies in the Philippines. Sort of like the holy grail for Philippine actresses to play her. So, I think Mark and I share that fandom of
Well,
this character.
Actually, I want to go back into that. I wasn't an original fan of the character. In fact, I thought she was a joke. It was actually a friend of mine who's very American who was like, you should really look into this because it's an interesting character. And I think I was just projecting Western values into it. That's why I thought it was a joke. But when you really do read the comic book side of the character, it's a pretty unique character in its own right. It reminds me a lot of the Princess of Mars, if anything. So there's a lot more to her story than what's been portrayed on film if you really look at the actual comic book material, and I feel like maybe it's time to explore that. Yeah.
Obviously, it wouldn't be a corny version.
Yes, it would not be that. I think it would be an interesting way to really retell everything and redefine the character in so many ways.
Yes.
But yeah,
Could be done so much better, definitely.
we're not cussing on anybody,
No,
I
no,
promise.
we're not. Oh, no, sorry.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Joe, I mean, it seems like you have, aspirations to become a filmmaker. I mean,
Technically, he is one right now.
well, yeah. I mean, he's talking about going to film school, and
It's a little bit late, I think. But
never too late.
Well, let me reiterate something to you. This is just coming from personal experience. Film school doesn't teach you everything. It's a good grounding. I'd say it's best to do by doing. What you'll find is what we're doing right now will take the place of that, I think.
I see.
More so than anything. Film school is just a starting point, but you're already in the middle. So if you could continue in the middle and just go from there, I feel like that could take the place of your ideal film school.
Perfect. I went to
Degree.
SC, so
Skip
it
the
was-
grade.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh,
but,
okay.
Yeah, on the healthcare side.
That's
So I always was in awe of.
why you said you were a nurse, right? Or are you still a
Yeah,
nurse right
yeah,
now?
yeah, I still am.
Okay.
Yep. Still keeping the day job.
Yeah, it's hard to get away from that.
Kids in it, those
Right.
pesky kids. She knows.
No.
And I think I'm pretty
Yeah,
thankful that my
kids.
day job happens to be, well, in the same field.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, for myself, I'm a graphic designer and a project manager, so I'm still within that creative realm, during the day. But there is something about just creating your own stuff,
Yeah, I agree.
Definitely.
I guess we can switch back to Carmina. It's short right now,
Mhm.
correct? And I mean, how long is the movie? And
You know what? We're targeting the sweet spot of about 10 to 15 minutes.
Mhm.
And a lot of people ask me, it's like, why don't you make it into a full feature? And my answer to that is, you want to make it a short because you want to have, you want to give people the opportunity to really digest it and to be able to see the potential of it without forcing a feature down their throat, especially if it's going to be the first time they're seeing a lot of different stories. Features are a much larger risk, but also you may not be able to really showcase everything you can, especially not on, let's just say, an independent budget at the moment. Yes, I work on a lot of major shows, but this one is something that I do on the sidelines, and the hope is by doing this, it could show the potential of what it could be, and we could start pitching it to something even larger.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, the only reason I ask about the movie and the movie length is because I'm friends with Susie Botello. She's the founder of the International Mobile Film Festival, and I also help out as a brand ambassador.
Mhm.
And the festival's coming up, but all the movies are shot on smartphones, and so you have Hollywood starting to take notice, and like Soderbergh's starting to make movies with an iPhone. So I'm just wondering, I mean, would you be willing to take that plunge also to make a smartphone movie down the road?
Although what we're doing is actually not that different. In fact, one of my directives for this was to shoot it on mirrorless. We're actually not using Alexis. I refrained from actually wanting to use a Red or an Alexa. I was like, we can do this completely with mirrorless. So that's what we're doing, and that's what we're sticking to. I mean, we're at this point in time where it's like if you compare the quality of a mirrorless camera versus a film that was done, say, 10 years ago, the mirrorless cameras would still pretty much win. And plus, working in TV really gives you a different perspective in terms of like what you can accomplish. Because when you work in TV, not everything is shot with the same camera. Like, you'd be surprised. A lot of your favorite shows are shot with 3 different cameras. You would never know.
So everything's like just adjusted in post.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of it is just adjusting post, matching the look, matching the grain. There's even a show that's a spin-off of a much larger show that I'm not going to give details on exactly. But they make it appear like it was shot on film
Mhm.
because the original show was shot on film, but the spin-off is not shot on film, but yet they insist on making it look like it's shot on film.
I guess we can maybe talk about other projects you're working on
Mhm.
that you can tell us about.
I can talk about some of them because the trailers have been out and whatnot. We wrapped up Gotham, which I think everybody's excited about because of certain things. But after that, we're also working on the prequel of Gotham, which is about Alfred Pennyworth, called
nice.
Pennyworth. And we're on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the usual. We wrapped up Lucifer for Netflix now. So it's a lot of different things, a lot of exciting stuff that I'm looking forward to seeing. What's interesting though is, unlike before, where a lot of the stuff we work on is automatically on screen like 2 weeks later, a lot of the new models, because of streaming, has sort of delayed that, so we have to wait a little bit before we get to see them. Yeah.
Erica, are there any projects that you can share with the audience that you have in the pipeline?
I mean, right now my main focus is Carmina and The Tales from Midnight. Producing on that too is a big hat, and I want to, do the best job that I can.
As a producer,
Keeping me busy.
as a producer, maybe you can sort of tell our audience like what it's like being a producer. I mean, what are your duties and responsibilities?
Well, I guess being a producer is, I mean, how would you describe that?
It's making sure that every
Making sure
aspect
every
of production
aspect
is running
right.
before your production day and on your
Pre-production,
production day.
post-production, it doesn't end after you shoot it, and then all the work before it, casting,
Yeah,
from
so
the script
honestly,
to
because we are a small
everything.
crew, everybody, despite of titles, wears multiple hats,
Sure.
more so than the usual. So it's producer by name, but really it's jack of all trades for everybody.
Now, when it comes to Carmina, how many people were on the crew?
It's interesting. It's growing because it probably, I'd say, started with 3, which became 5, which I'd say now is closer to 10, if not more than that, because what we've found is the more we've reached out to the community, the more people are excited about the prospect of it, that they've been lending their time, and it just keeps on growing from there, and in so many different ways.
I guess what can we expect more in the future from Carmina and also your other projects?
You can expect a lot of cool looking stuff.
Yeah.
That's all I can probably say. But expect to see new stories that feel very familiar, but also expect to see more personal stories that are culturally relevant but yet internationally palatable, if I could kind of like phrase it in a certain way.
I think that's a really good tact to use, because I mean, at the same time you're sort of connecting with other people while at the same time telling the Filipino story.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's a story. That's all that really matters. You tell a good story, people will want to see it. But there is, especially today, there is a larger inclination to want to see more supernatural stories than just your grandma's story. You know what I mean? It's like being able to showcase something flashy, but at the same time have a meaningful aspect. I think it's always better, because I feel like people today have a much shorter attention span.
Sure.
And there's so much material circulating that you really have to somehow... get their attention. So I feel like a good product is a good start, but then you really do have to bring in the extra flavor to just grab their attention.
I guess before we wrap up the show, we like to have this round called superhero shoutouts. I mean, obviously we can't do what we do without a little help. Is there anybody or a group of people out there you want to send a shout out to?
Sorry, you mean shout outs to just any group of people?
Anybody that's you want to say thank you to, basically.
I want to give a shout out to Kosa VFX, my visual effects family, only because I grew up with them, starting from person of interest up to Gotham today, starting from a junior artist to now supervising my own department in visual effects. But also, it's been really the place that's made my career so far. So I want to give them a good shout out.
Joe.
Of course, Film Creative for bringing us together, and Filipino American Chamber of Commerce of Greater Los Angeles is an organization that I founded 19 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And they're really interested and very much wanting to be involved in supporting Carmina. So shout out to them.
Very good.
I would say thanks to Film Creative as well, Meriden and Caitlin from our writing groups, and especially to Mark and Joe, because now that we're producing Carmina together, it's just been, it's a whole new thing I'm doing now.
Okay, I'm gonna add to that. Thank you to Film Creative.
Yes.
No disrespect, but yes, definitely thankful for getting to know the community, because I'm gonna keep on repeating myself until it's kind of like pretty old sounding at this point. But there is no grassroots movement without a community, and they are a community.
Yes.
So yeah.
Where can people find out more about Carmina, and what is the future? I mean, what's the next step?
For now, I'd say go to carminamovie.com, follow it, share it, retweet it. I haven't been very active on Twitter. Reshare it on Instagram and Facebook. But yeah, just share the project, and when there comes a time when there's more to support the project, we'll let you guys know. But for now, just keep on following, share it, and just share the love.
Cool. And is there I guess a version that people can view online?
No, not yet.
Okay.
We're still basically shooting.
Got it.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we look forward to, I guess, the future, version of Carmina that you can share. I mean, because it looks like an interesting project, and just based on what you've all told me today, and with your, I guess your want to promote Filipino culture, but also to tell a good story. I mean, I think it's a win-win.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for being on the Holiday Show
Thanks for having
podcast,
us.
and
Thanks for having us.
I look forward to having you guys on again.
After it wraps.
Yes.
Cool. Well, that's the show. Peace, cheers, and talk to you later. Thank you so much for tuning into the Holiday Show podcast, where we love showcasing independent creators like filmmakers Mark A.J. Nazal, Erica Juliet, and Joe Arciaga. I can't wait to see their movie Carmina. Also, don't forget to listen to episode 66 featuring filmmaker Caitlin Fay, where we talk about her movie Fruit Fly. And also stay tuned for episode 68, which will round out our current focus on filmmakers with the creator of the viral smartphone film 61 Hugs, which was screened at the recent 2019 International Mobile Film Festival, and it was made by C.K. Golding, all the way from Sheffield, England. If you believe in our mission to be the voice of independent creators, we would love a rating, hopefully 5 stars, and a comment on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. We're even on Spotify. Also, please share our episodes using the hashtag HallHShow. Peace, cheers, and if you would like to recommend a guest for our show, please reach out to us on any of our social media accounts or our website, hallh.com.